Your soulmate has something important to share. Read before tomorrow. Something lingered in the silence long after everyone else believed the moment had ended. A message was never spoken. A truth was never interrupted. Somewhere, beneath ordinary conversations and ordinary smiles, someone paused with your name resting quietly on their mind. Why did they stop themselves? Why does tomorrow suddenly seem so important? The answer isn't where anyone expects it to be. It begins with a single choice that has already been made, even if you haven't seen it yet. Stay with this, because the next few moments uncover a piece of the story almost nobody notices until it's too late. Imagine a quiet evening where the world keeps moving exactly as it always has. Cars pass. Phones light up. Friends laugh in distant rooms. Yet inside one person's heart, everything slows down. Your soulmate stares at an unfinished message. They type a sentence, erase it, and begin again. Not because they have nothing to say, but because what they want to share feels too meaningful to rush. They aren't searching for perfect words. They're searching for the courage to let those words exist. That hesitation says more than any conversation ever could. There's one detail hidden inside this silence that changes everything. It isn't fear of rejection. It isn't uncertainty about their feelings. It's the realization that once the truth is spoken, nothing between you will ever feel the same again. Before tomorrow arrives, they know something must finally be understood. But what is it? Don't drift away now, because the answer hides inside the smallest moment, a glance, a memory, a promise they once thought had disappeared forever. The night grows quieter, but their thoughts grow louder. Every familiar place reminds them of something connected to you. A favorite song suddenly carries different meaning. A simple street becomes the setting of a memory they can't stop replaying. They begin noticing tiny signs they ignored before. Conversations that unexpectedly mention timing, strangers speaking words that echo inside them, little coincidences arriving one after another until they no longer feel accidental. None of these moments force a decision. Instead, they gently guide them toward one unavoidable realization. They've been carrying something important for far too long. Not a dramatic confession. Not a shocking secret. Something deeper. Something that explains why certain distances never truly separated you emotionally, even when life seemed determined to pull both of you in different directions. Keep watching this story unfold, because the next discovery isn't about where your soulmate has been. It's about what finally convinced them that waiting any longer could become the greatest regret of their life. Far from the noise of everyone else's expectations, another scene quietly unfolds. Your soulmate sits alone for just a few minutes, long enough for honesty to replace distraction. They replay conversations that once seemed ordinary but now reveal meanings hidden between every sentence. They remember moments when they almost reached out but convinced themselves there would always be another opportunity. Suddenly tomorrow no longer feels guaranteed in the same way. That thought doesn't create panic. It creates clarity. They understand that some words lose their power if spoken too late, while others become unforgettable simply because they arrive at exactly the right moment. Somewhere deep inside, they decide that what they have to share deserves truth instead of delay. But before those words finally reach you, one unexpected event will quietly test their resolve. It will seem small at first, almost impossible to notice, yet it becomes the very reason everything begins to change before tomorrow arrives. And that next moment explains far more than anyone could ever imagine. A single conversation, almost invisible to everyone else, became the turning point your soulmate never expected. It didn't happen with dramatic music or life-changing headlines. It happened in the quiet space between ordinary moments, where honesty often arrives without asking permission. They found themselves staring out of a window, watching the evening settle over familiar streets, when a simple question echoed through their thoughts: if tomorrow arrived exactly the same as today, would I regret staying silent one more time? That question refused to leave. It followed them through every distraction until they finally stopped running from it. They realized they had spent too much time waiting for the perfect circumstance, believing destiny would somehow arrange every detail. Before we continue, if this story is speaking to your heart, consider sharing it with someone who believes meaningful connections still exist. Leave a comment about what part resonates with you most, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The next revelation is closer than you think, and it begins with an unexpected encounter that seems ordinary until one remarkable sentence changes everything. Morning arrives with a different feeling than any morning before. Your soulmate notices details they once ignored: the warmth of sunlight across the room, the familiar rhythm of daily life, the comforting reminder that every new day quietly offers another chance to become more honest than the day before. Then something unexpected happens. Someone casually mentions how quickly opportunities disappear when people assume there will always be another tomorrow. It isn't directed at them. It isn't even about relationships. Yet those words land with incredible weight, as though they were spoken for one reason alone. In that instant, scattered memories suddenly fit together like pieces of a picture they had been trying to understand for months. Every unfinished conversation, every delayed message, every smile that concealed deeper feelings now points toward the same conclusion. They don't want another day to pass carrying something that belongs in the open. But here's the surprising part. What they need to tell you isn't designed to change who you are. It's designed to reveal who they've quietly become because of you. Stay close, because the next scene uncovers why tomorrow has become such an important deadline in their heart, and one overlooked detail will explain why this message could never have been shared until now. As the hours continue, your soulmate makes a quiet promise to themselves that nobody else hears. They promise not to let hesitation write another chapter of their story. They promise to replace assumptions with honesty and silence with courage, even if their voice shakes when the moment finally arrives. Yet just as they begin preparing to speak, life presents one final, unexpected pause, not to stop them, but to make absolutely certain their decision comes from genuine understanding rather than passing emotion. During that pause, they revisit every memory connected to you, and instead of remembering isolated moments, they begin seeing one continuous journey that has quietly led them toward this exact point. The message they have been protecting is no longer simply a collection of carefully chosen words. It has become a reflection of everything they have learned about patience, appreciation, timing, and the quiet power of saying something meaningful before the opportunity slips away. One final piece, however, remains hidden. It isn't the message itself. It's the reason they believe you were meant to hear it before tomorrow arrives. And when that reason finally comes to light, you'll understand why nothing about this journey has been ordinary from the very beginning. Just when it seems the moment has finally arrived, another unexpected layer reveals itself. Your soulmate doesn't rush toward the message. Instead, they pause one last time. Not because they're afraid anymore, but because they want every word to carry the weight of everything they've learned. That's when they understand something remarkable. The message waiting to reach you isn't simply about emotions. It's about timing. It's about finally recognizing that some connections become stronger not because people never drift apart, but because they discover what truly matters before it's too late to say it. Stay with this a little longer, because the next revelation isn't hidden inside dramatic events. It's hidden inside one quiet realization that changes the meaning of every delay, every unanswered question, and every silent hope they carried. As evening approaches, your soulmate begins imagining what tomorrow might look like if they remain silent once again, and for the first time, that possibility feels heavier than the risk of speaking honestly. That realization becomes impossible to ignore. While the rest of the world continues through another ordinary day, something extraordinary is unfolding beneath the surface. Your soulmate starts noticing how often your memory appears when they least expect it. A familiar melody unexpectedly reminds them of a conversation that once made them smile. A passing breeze brings back the feeling of standing beside someone who made everything seem calmer without even trying. Even simple routines begin carrying unexpected meaning, as though life itself has been quietly collecting reminders until they could no longer be overlooked. None of these moments shout for attention, yet together they create a picture too clear to deny. They finally understand that what they've been holding onto isn't unfinished because they lacked the right words. It's unfinished because they hadn't fully understood their own heart. Now that understanding has arrived, the silence they've lived with no longer feels comfortable. It feels temporary. There's one detail you still haven't seen, though, and it may be the most important one of all. The message waiting for you isn't only meant to explain how they feel today, it also reveals why they believe your story was never supposed to end with unanswered questions. Before this chapter closes, another unexpected encounter quietly confirms that they're moving in the right direction, making the next moment even more meaningful than they imagined. Then comes the calm before everything changes. Your soulmate steps away from every distraction, allowing themselves a rare moment of complete honesty. No outside opinions. They realize that the most meaningful messages are rarely perfect. They don't need flawless sentences or carefully rehearsed speeches. They only need sincerity. That realization lifts a burden they didn't even know they were carrying. Suddenly, the words they've struggled to find begin arriving naturally, one thought leading gently to the next, each sentence reflecting months of quiet reflection rather than a single emotional impulse. Yet before those words can finally reach you, something unexpected catches their attention, a small reminder connected to a promise they once made, a promise they believed had faded with time but now feels more alive than ever. It stops them in their tracks, not because it changes their decision, but because it reveals the deeper purpose behind it. They understand that tomorrow isn't simply another date on the calendar. Tomorrow represents the moment when waiting finally gives way to truth. The questions that once filled every silent moment slowly fade, replaced by a calm determination that feels impossible to ignore. They no longer wonder whether the message should be shared. The only question left is how to say it in a way that truly reflects everything they have carried inside. They imagine your reaction, not to predict it, but because they want every word to bring clarity instead of confusion. They picture the conversations that never happened, the smiles that almost became something more, and the moments when both of you may have been closer than either of you realized. Suddenly, every missed opportunity transforms into preparation instead of regret. If you've stayed with this story until now, thank you for being part of the journey. If it has touched something in your heart, consider sharing it with someone who believes meaningful stories still matter. Leave a comment telling us which moment has stayed with you the longest, and subscribe so you can experience the rest of this unfolding journey together. But don't leave yet, because the most meaningful discovery hasn't arrived. One unexpected detail is about to connect every piece of this story into a picture that neither you nor your soulmate could have imagined only a day ago. As the afternoon quietly slips toward evening, your soulmate notices something extraordinary, not around them, but within them. The restless feeling that once made every decision difficult has disappeared. In its place is a quiet confidence that doesn't demand attention yet refuses to be ignored. They begin writing the message once again, but this time they don't erase every sentence. Instead, each line flows naturally, carrying warmth, honesty, and a gentle hope that tomorrow can become the beginning of something different. They aren't trying to create the perfect confession. They're simply allowing the truth to exist without hiding behind hesitation anymore. Every sentence feels like opening another window inside a room that had remained closed for far too long. Then something beautiful happens. They read the message aloud to themselves, and for the first time, it sounds exactly like the person they've been trying to become, someone who chooses sincerity over silence. Yet just before pressing send, their eyes stop on one final sentence. It's only a few simple words, but those words hold the entire reason this message had to wait until now. What do those words say? That answer remains hidden for only a little longer, because the next moment changes not just the message, but the meaning behind every feeling that inspired it. The sky begins changing colors as another day quietly prepares to come to an end, and your soulmate realizes that tomorrow is no longer something to fear or postpone. Tomorrow has become a doorway. A doorway into honesty. A doorway into conversations that should have happened long ago. A doorway into a future where uncertainty no longer controls every decision. They take one slow breath, look at the message one final time, and smile, not because every outcome is guaranteed, but because they know they have finally honored what their heart has been trying to say all along. In that peaceful moment, another unexpected realization gently arrives. They understand that the most important thing they wanted to share isn't hidden inside one dramatic sentence at all. It's woven through every word they've written. It's the realization that genuine connections don't disappear simply because life becomes complicated. They become stronger when people finally choose authenticity over fear. And just as their finger moves closer to sending that long-awaited message, something entirely unexpected appears, a response they never asked for, a tiny clue they never expected to receive, one quiet moment that makes them pause with a smile instead of uncertainty. That single surprise changes the direction of everything once again, and what it reveals next may become the most unforgettable chapter of this entire journey. Just when it seemed every unanswered question had finally found its place, the story took a turn that neither your soulmate nor you could have predicted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It arrived with the kind of quiet surprise that only becomes meaningful after you realize how perfectly it fits into everything that came before. As your soulmate looked at the message one final time, a memory surfaced with astonishing clarity. It wasn't the biggest memory the two of you could have shared. In fact, it was almost invisible at the time, a brief exchange, a kind gesture, a simple sentence that seemed ordinary when it happened. Yet now it carried extraordinary meaning. They suddenly understood that this single moment had quietly shaped every decision that followed. It reminded them that genuine connections are rarely built through grand declarations. They're built through small moments remembered long after everyone else has forgotten them. That's why this message feels so important. It isn't trying to impress you. It isn't trying to rewrite the past. It's simply trying to place one missing piece back where it has always belonged. Stay close, because there's another layer hidden beneath this realization, and once it comes into view, the entire journey begins to feel beautifully complete instead of unfinished. With a calm heart and steady hands, your soulmate begins reading their own message once more, not to change it, but to experience it as though they were hearing it for the first time. Every sentence feels lighter than before because it's no longer carrying the burden of uncertainty. Instead, each word reflects acceptance, gratitude, and a quiet hope for what tomorrow might bring. They imagine you discovering the message unexpectedly during an ordinary moment, perhaps while enjoying your morning coffee or taking a peaceful walk, never realizing that someone had spent countless evenings searching for exactly the right way to reach you. The thought doesn't fill them with nervousness anymore. It fills them with peace. Then something remarkable happens. They notice that the final line of the message says everything they struggled to express for so long without relying on dramatic promises or impossible expectations. It simply acknowledges the value of honesty arriving at the right time. In that instant, they realize tomorrow isn't important because it's a deadline. It's important because it represents the first day they no longer have to wonder what would have happened. Before the next chapter begins, though, one unexpected response quietly appears from a place neither of you would have thought to look, gently confirming that this story has been moving toward this exact moment all along. The evening settles peacefully, carrying with it a feeling that is both familiar and entirely new. Your soulmate steps outside for a few quiet minutes, allowing the cool air to remind them how much life can change through one sincere decision. They no longer see tomorrow as something waiting in the distance. They feel as though they're already standing at its edge, ready to welcome whatever comes with an open heart. Then, almost without warning, they notice something that makes them smile, a tiny reminder that hope often arrives in the simplest ways. It isn't a dramatic sign. It's a familiar phrase, an unexpected coincidence, NAM.